Today is Saturday, February 7th, 2026. We are now approximately 2 weeks since the shooting of Pretti Protest in Minneapolis. Why do I call this individual Pretti Protest? Because that's what other people are referring to him as. Now, what have we found out about this person so far? The investigation has not been completed. Reportedly, the Department of Justice has launched a civil rights investigation into the ICE agents involved in the shooting. And I want to point out that the Department of Justice is not a patriotic organization. This is the same organization who has been attacking patriots and militias and independent journalists for decades. So the fact that they're launching an investigation into people that were protecting themselves, and I'll get into that, is not a surprise. Now, what about Pretti Protest? What have we learned about this individual? Well, it came out after I did this last video that he had been involved in multiple physical altercations with ICE agents since the shooting of Georgina Floyd. At least one of these altercations has been captured on camera. Reportedly two, but we've only seen the footage of one of them. And in the one of them, you see him kicking out the taillight of an ICE vehicle and then getting into a fist fight with the ICE agents. You can clearly see he has the pistol in a holster at his waist. And you know what? He wasn't shot for having the pistol on him that day. Nor was he shot at the other incident that we know of that happened about a week or so later. Once again, he had a firearm on him. He attacked ICE agents, which is why we're not getting to see the footage. And reportedly in that situation, the ICE agents broke one of his ribs. He wasn't shot that day either for his Second Amendment rights, as we've been told over the last 2 weeks, as the media and talking heads who normally do interviews and talk about how the average citizen shouldn't have firearms because it's a danger to the public. Well, these same people now are saying that, Pretti Protest's Second Amendment rights resulted in him being killed, so you need to go to war with the federal government over that. Interesting, isn't it? People who normally are vehemently anti-firearm, who want the police to break into your home and take away your firearm because you're a constitutionalist, these people are now screaming there should be a civil war because someone's firearm rights were infringed. Interesting. Now, another thing that we've now found out since I did the last video, people have slowed down the footage that was taken from Pretti Protest's front. The closer in footage that was taken by that pink land whale that was up against the window there. And they looked at Pretti Protest's hands, and what they noticed is not long after the one agent appeared to have removed the pistol from the holster and did not tell the other agents that the firearm had been secured. People noticed that not long after that happened, you see Pretti reach back to his holster, close his hand over where the pistol grip should have been. So Pretti was not trying to surrender like people say. He was grabbing for his firearm to start shooting ICE agents. I want that to factor in. This whole thing about he was a peaceful observer is bullshit. This guy was deliberately trying to escalate the situation for 2 weeks before he finally fucked around and found out and caught about a half dozen rounds in the back. What would you have preferred? A couple agents dead on the ground and then he got caught a couple dozen rounds in the front? I'd say in that Pretti Protest shooting situation, it was a win-win for the ICE agents. They got to go home alive. They reportedly did catch the target of their raid that day for deportation. Someone who had been ordered to leave the United States in 2012. It has also come out that Pretti Protest was a member of different communist organizations online. I bet you haven't heard about that one, huh? All you've been hearing about, is he was a nurse at the VA. He took care of poor defenseless veterans. I'm willing to bet this son of a bitch is one of them who was regularly ratting out veterans to have their firearms taken away. How many of you are aware of how many leftists work for the Department of Veterans Affairs? How many of you are aware that if a veteran says they have firearms when they're at the VA, more often than not, someone shows up to confiscate those firearms because, that veteran could potentially have PTSD or some other problem that would make them a threat for society. That's been going on for a very long time and has not stopped. Now, what else has happened over the past couple weeks here? Oh, yes. Last week, Tampon Timmy, a recording came out. I don't know if this was a phone call, him with another person, if this was a Zoom call or some type of meeting, but when I listened to the footage, in this recording, you hear Tampon Timmy say that we're doing good on the streets. We're almost to that Sumter or John Brown moment. Do you understand what he is referencing there? First off, Sumter. He is referring to the attack on Fort Sumter in Charleston, South Carolina in 1861, which is considered the start of the American Civil War of the 1860s. The other one that he's referring to, John Brown, that is a terrorist who participated in a period known as Bloody Kansas in the 1850s. This was a very, very, very brutal struggle that happened in the territory of Kansas between abolitionists and people that were coming in from slave states. John Brown was one of the worst. By any definition you look at, he would be referred to as a terrorist now. He was so violent that other abolitionists turned their back on him and his men because they slaughtered everybody who was not one of their people. John Brown was eventually pushed out of Kansas, and he moved his way east, and he decided to launch an attack on a federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia. This arsenal was a location where the federal government kept weapons and ammunition for use to defend the country. John Brown led a group of his extremists in a raid against that arsenal. They also were trying to incite a slave revolt in that area. He believed that he could get the Negro population, as he referred to them, to rise up against their white masters, and then he would pass them out military issue firearms and ammunition to cleanse the land of the evil white people. Meaning anyone who wasn't as extremist as he was. John Brown is an icon for the modern left in the United States, especially his tactics. That's why you have groups emulating him and promoting him. Groups like the John Brown Gun Club. So once again, Tampon Timmy is promoting civil war against the U.S. federal government. How is this person not under arrest? How is he not in jail right now? How many times does he have to say things that clearly count as insurrection under federal law before he gets arrested? Where you had on January 6th of 2021, grandmas that entered the Capitol building with walkers and have cancer were considered such a threat to the nation, they were arrested in FBI raids and hauled off to prisons for the rest of their life just for being in a building, being guided by the security of that building. This guy is a governor of a state, constantly talks about how that state is at war with the U.S. federal government, is being caught on recordings saying that they need to ramp things up on the street so they get a civil war moment. How is this son of a bitch not arrested? How? Someone explain that to me. What have we had over the last 2 weeks, though, as a response from the U.S. federal government? Oh, Donald Trump pulled out 2,000 ICE agents and Border Patrol out of the state of Minnesota to de-escalate the situation. Did it de-escalate the situation? No, it did not. The communists and Antifa and all those little groups that are on the street in Minneapolis are declaring autonomous zones all across the city. They're setting up checkpoints all over the damn place. Anyone who gets close to those checkpoints, they stop you. They take your picture. They demand your identification. They take pictures of your identification. They take pictures of your vehicle, pictures of your license plate. They search your vehicle. If you have a firearm, it gets confiscated. You have camera equipment, they confiscate the camera equipment and then beat the shit out of you. They talk about free speech, how they have free speech, but they ignore that these people that are independent reporters, unless those independent reporters back them 100%, they get the crap beat out of them. Freedoms for thee, but not you and me. Freedom's only for the communists. At the same time, these autonomous zones started springing up. Trump put out an order that federal agents should not get involved, should not get near any of those autonomous zones. Did that stop them from spreading? No, it didn't. The communists in Minnesota seen that, hey, if 100 checkpoints will stop the ICE agents from showing up and going out and doing raids, we need 1,000, we need 10,000. These things are appearing all over the place. Now, I know someone's going to say, security guy, the Minneapolis police went in, they shut them down. No, they didn't. They shut down a few of them. Even more have sprung up. I'm hearing that they're all over the Twin Cities now, especially in the residential areas. Essentially, we have Little Mogadishu has spread through the entire fucking Minneapolis metro area. All of it now is Mogadishu, with little individual warlords controlling different areas. Is Tim Walz deploying the National Guard or the state police to go after it and stop that? No, he's not. He's still backing them. Escalating the situation. Why? Because what do they want? They want a civil war, and it kind of looks like Trump does too. He's encouraging them, allowing it to happen. It's just spreading like a fucking cancer. More and more territory of the Twin Cities metro area is falling under communist domination. And that's literally what it is. Communist-controlled territory. And Trump is doing nothing about it. He has ordered federal agents, federal law enforcement, not to get anywhere near that stuff and do anything about it. Tim Walz will do nothing about it because that's what he wants. That's what people like him want. They want the civil war in this country, and you know what? They're going to get it. When the weather warms up, that's when you're going to get Antifa actually starting to deploy their ground troops on the streets. You will see open warfare. You will see raids on National Guard armories. You will see literally what I warned you about a few weeks ago. We've had this conversation in my chat on Telegram. I warned about this stuff a few weeks back. That we were getting intel that leftist groups were getting ready to start terrorist operations in the United States. But I couldn't confirm when or where or any of that stuff. Only that we knew it was being talked about. Holy fucking shit, we're starting to see it going into action, aren't we? And we're seeing the media justify it. You've been forewarned. You better be prepared. When the weather warms up, the situation's going to warm up. The question is how long, how quick, until everything really falls apart? That's the big question. Another thing that we're seeing is these leftists are really pushing, trying to get patriots to start the stuff. Trying to get patriots and militias to take the blame for the civil war they're trying to start. They are pushing in patriot forums and that stuff still that Pretti Protest was shot because of his Second Amendment rights. Well, you guys talk about you would go to war if Second Amendment rights are being infringed. Well, here it clearly was, and you're doing nothing. And they're trying to get patriots to do that while they're staying inside their nice warm apartments or in mom's nice warm basement while she makes them pizza rolls. They want the patriots to go out there to start shooting ICE agents for them. Fuck that. I'm not going to fight on the same side as communists. I'm not going to fight on the same side as actual Nazis either. I took an oath to the U.S. Constitution, and I will follow through with it. If either one of your stupid groups decides to actually start a civil war in this country, guess what? I am your fucking enemy. I will fight. And I will put you in the fucking ground forever. You will be buried in a fucking cornfield in an unmarked grave to be forgotten by history. Go ahead, commies. Try starting a civil war. You know what you're going to do? You're just going to get more fence sitters to join Team Patriot in this coming fight. Kill a commie for mommy is going to be a very popular phrase again soon, I think. You guys are allowing it to happen. Now, I got a little intel here for you. Someone forwarded this to me a few days ago. Now, this fuckwad, Ashley Allen, apparently is a female. She's trying to do a campaign supposedly for funding for tens and tens of thousands of dollars to become a medic on the streets of Minneapolis for the resistance, and is promoting this, the Minnesota Rebel Alliance. Now, will this actually come to fruition, actually spawn anything? I doubt it, but it's something that we're seeing more online. These leftist groups are trying to organize into a neo-confederacy. Let's be serious, that's what it is. They're trying to become the new Confederacy. A new socialist army of America. And you already know the groups that are trying to be a part of this. Groups like the Socialist Rifle Association, John Brown Gun Club, the different tranny groups. They're all trying to come together to form a new communist army. Now, on some of the symbolism here on this. Apparently, Ashley is really big into Star Wars, so she took the symbol of the rebellion, changed it from red to the colors of the Somali domination flag in Minnesota. And I got a story on this one. Removed the rebel firebird and replaced it with the Minnesota state bird, which is the common loon. Now, the Minnesota flag here. For those of you that don't know the story on this, I found this out talking with relatives that are still in Minnesota. How this flag came about, okay? Leftists in the Minnesota government, who are always offended about everything, were offended with the old Minnesota flag because there is a picture of a Native American riding a horse reportedly off into the sunset. So they said that this flag is a flag of ethnic cleansing, the murder of Native Americans. We demand a new flag that's neutral, all-inclusive, so on and so forth. So these leftists, which control Minnesota politics, the Democratic Party controls the politics of Minnesota. I've mentioned this in the past. They set up a committee filled with members of their own party. And they decided, yes, we need a new flag. Well, what should it look like? This is what they came up with. Everyone who has seen this has said it looks like it's inspired by the Somali flag. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Now, under the Minnesota Constitution, it says any changes to the Minnesota flag must be voted on by the electorate during an election. So typically changes were done over the decades during general elections. It was put out as an initiative on the ballot. You know, would the people approve this or not approve this? Other changes that have been promoted since 1957, I think it was, have been denied. 57 was the last change of the Minnesota flag, if I remember correctly. Now, the members of this committee admitted they knew the population of Minnesota would not approve a change of the Minnesota flag. The only people that wanted it were the extremists on their committee. So what they did, they decided to go around the law considerably. They did an election, a ballot, amongst members of the Democratic Party that were part of the state government of Minnesota. And surprise, surprise, they overwhelmingly voted to replace the Minnesota flag with that abomination. Now, from what I hear from relatives around Minnesota, is outside the Twin Cities metro area, the vast majority of the towns, the communities, are refusing to use the new flag. They're still flying the old Minnesota flag. Because this was not approved constitutionally, according to the Minnesota Constitution. And they do not accept domination by the Somali community of Minneapolis. So those of you that think Minnesota is complete rebel-controlled territory, it's all communist, it isn't. I've told you before, the only place in Minnesota that supports this leftist communist ideology is Minneapolis and St. Paul. Greater Minnesota, as it's referred to, every area outside the metro area, for the most part outside the Iron Range, is patriotic, is American. They can't stand communism. But through shenanigans, communists control the Minnesota state government. So there you go. It did turn into a bit of a rant, but that's the information that's come out over the last couple weeks here. Things are still ramping up in Minneapolis and St. Paul. The leftists are still staying within the metro area. I have heard of smaller protests outside the metro area, which really are resulting in absolutely nothing because no one supports them. The people of the country overwhelmingly voted for the illegals to be deported, and that includes the majority of Minnesota. It's only the nut jobs in the metro area that support the leftist ideology, that support communism. So there you go. Continue to get ready. Stuff will get spicier as the weather warms up. Antifa has not committed their ground troops yet. Most of the leftist organizations are still cowering indoors because it's too fucking cold outside. For those of you that have never been to Minnesota, this time of year is typically the coldest time of year. February is the month where the weather is typically below zero every day and the average temp is around 10 below. But I talked to a relative yesterday, reportedly it was up around 40s, which is unseasonably warm. But, you know, that's like a summer, heat wave for Minnesota, 40 in February. That's unbelievable. That's ungodly hot. So I was told people were walking around in t-shirts and shorts and flip-flops, for Christ's sakes. So, hey, hats off to my brothers and sisters in Minnesota. You know how to handle the cold for real. I mean, we grew up in it. We're born into it. The rest of their country really doesn't understand what cold and snow really is. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the patriot and militia movements, and for all patriots out there, continue to prepare. And always remember, essayons, let us try.